We hear a lot about blood diamonds. This is blood shrimp.
We are at war with the oceans, and if we win this war, we're going to lose it all because mankind is not able to live on this planet with the Dead Sea.
My name is Ali.
And I'm Lucy.
And we're the directors of the Netflix original documentary Seaspiracy.
And we're here with Klaus from Plant-Based News to talk about some of the questions we've gotten, some of the criticisms, and to go through some behind-the-scenes snippets.
Enjoy.
Hey everyone, this is Klaus from Plant-Based News. So today I'm going to be showing you my interview with Ali and Lucy, the directors of the Netflix phenomenon Seaspiracy. We talk about a range of behind-the-scenes topics. It's really, really interesting. And hit the bell and subscribe for part 2, where we talk about some of the industry pushback and the environmental groups that are featured in the documentary and their responses. But hope you enjoy this interview. Firstly, thank you so much, Ali and Lucy, for doing this interview. I really, really appreciate it. I know how busy you've probably been since the release of the Netflix original Seaspiracy, which we're going to talk about in this video. How's the reception been?
Yeah, I mean, we had no idea the film would be received so well. It's already risen to #1 in several countries in the film category, and overall category on Netflix. It's like in the top 1 to 3 in so many. Top 10 in like almost 50 countries. So we were not expecting this. We really thought the film would just be maybe buried in all the content that's on Netflix, and maybe we'll do some film festivals or something like that. We had no idea the overwhelming response. We've had A-list celebrities share it. We've had scientists share it. We've had huge accounts. Schools are reaching out to us, letting us know that they're showing it to their kids. So it's been incredible. And so we're now sort of going, wow, like we need to backpedal, we need to grow our team. And so we're growing our team now to keep up with social media and carrying on this campaign. We've got future events coming up that will be on our website. And so, yeah, it's just been completely remarkable and has really taken us by surprise.
Congratulations again. I mean, it was an amazing piece of content that you put together, and so many people have shared it. You mentioned A-list celebrities there, Ali, but athletes like Chris Froome, one of the world's best cyclists, or journalists like George Monbiot, or Kourtney Kardashian. Have you guys, she obviously shared it a couple of weeks ago, but have you guys had any kind of interesting DMs from anybody?
I mean, it's often not the celebrities. It's like, the kind of people with, maybe a few hundred followers that write to me that sometimes get to me. Someone wrote to me who was she was a chef, and she'd been a pescatarian her whole life. She specialized in making fish and seafood dishes. And she said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go vegetarian. And, I was trying to brainstorm with her, like ways that, she could come up with, different kind of products that weren't made with seafood, and it's just the impact that you can have on people's lives. I think someone wrote to you about they were studying marine biology or something.
Yeah, like
people are like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life now. I'm so inspired, and whether they go on to do that or not, it can change people's lives in such profound ways. That's like, it's really moving, I think. Yeah,
people writing to us that they're maybe taking a change in their career choice. Even seafood chefs and those kinds of people. It's been remarkable across the board in all demographics. This has been a complete cannonball when it comes to like impact, reaching all demographics. So it's blasted the audience wide open, and now everyone's starting to talk about ocean conservation.
And it really shows that the world was really prime and ready for this message right now, because we weren't expecting this response, but the response really shows that people are willing to change. People are willing to sort of like do what it takes. People are willing to try and save the ocean.
I completely agree. And Ali, you said it blew the audience wide open. It blew the fishing industry completely out of the water. And what's funny about this whole film is it's been so many years in the making. I remember a couple of years ago, you basically said it was done. Then a year ago, you said it was nearly done. 6 months ago, it still wasn't out. What's the sort of journey been like?
I want to start on that one. I think you can definitely finish this one. Because when we started this film, we had this vision that like we'd maybe be finished in about 10 months, right? So start to finish, the filming, the editing, all done in about 10 months, less than a year. And then it spilled over into like a year and a half. And then we're like, okay, 2 years, we'll get this done. And then the story got deeper. We went down the rabbit hole. We're getting more interviews, more pieces of the puzzle started to emerge. We're starting to understand the bigger picture. And before we know it, 3 years, 3.5 years, and then 4 years. And then sort of like spilling over 4 years. Like then we're like, wow, okay, we finally finished, and then Netflix said,
then
right.
There's a huge process at the end when you finished as well.
Yeah,
like,
legal deliveries and stuff like that. But then Netflix gave us the release date, and before we knew it, we're like, here's the release date, and it's out there. And in the past week, it's been sort of just, where are we at with this? So yeah.
I just wanted to add that I think with anything creative like this, I think you can work on something like this forever, like you have to put a stop to it at some point, because think about it, when you're working on something like this, like new science is coming out all the time, new stories, like things are happening, and you just want to keep adding them in, adding it in. We could be making this literally forever, but at some point you got to pull the plug and be like, right, that's it.
And to the people that haven't seen the documentary, or they've seen it and they still think local fishing can be good, or that some people need it for sustenance, what do you say back to these kind of people?
So I think what we found is in the film that there are people around the world that need to rely on fisheries for sustenance, right? So we cover in the film people in West Africa who rely on them and elsewhere. The problem is today, if you want to have the small scale fishery providing you fish regularly for your diet, times that by 7-8 billion people, you end up with the same problem. But the best option that we have to protect our oceans is to adopt a plant-based diet. And whether that's something that people do 1 day a week or eventually go 100% plant-based, that's going to be the best thing that we can do.
I wanted to ask about the Faroe Islands, which in my opinion was one of the most powerful moments in the film. I don't know what to ask, but how was that?
So I think what a lot of people don't realize is the scene towards the end of the film with the Faroe Islands whale hunt was so close to being cut out, throughout the whole process. We just didn't know how it was going to integrate with the story, because, as the voiceover, as my narration states, it did feel like a step backwards. Here we were, we'd just gone on this huge journey and this whole voyage of understanding the leading threat to our oceans and all the slavery and the deforestation of the sea floor and the bycatch and the species extinction, the plastic, everything. It felt like a step backwards to really start talking about whaling again. And we really didn't know if we could present such graphic footage. And we had so much footage from the Faroe Islands that was just so unbelievably graphic. The images will never leave me.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of covered it really well, but obviously we cover whaling right at the beginning of the film. So there was a couple of days there where we were really stuck, and we're like, how can we make this work? We can't put this at the beginning of the film. We can't, it's so different from the whaling that we put at the beginning of the film. It's
something that's made some of the biggest emotional impact on people, and actually helped people understand the parallels between hunting whales and the hunting of the rest of the marine life in our oceans that we all consume, and the hypocrisy of pointing fingers at this country and that country, whether it be the Faroe Islands or Taiji in Japan, and actually going, hold on a minute, we're all complicit in the decimation of marine life. And it's actually, we all need to start with ourselves as opposed to pointing fingers elsewhere when it comes to protecting our ocean. Yeah, it kind of comes full circle in a lot of ways. I think a lot of the reason we start with Japan or we start with plastic is because that's where we feel like, the public is, people are already aware of, well, to an extent, about what goes on in Taiji, and people know that plastic's a huge problem. So that's our starting point, travel kind of around the world looking at these issues, and it comes back to us on a global level. We're all kind of complicit in this, and we all have a role to play.
And how, just to ask about the production again, was most of it editing, a couple of years of editing, and was a couple of years of it going around the world videoing it, and then it was editing, or was it a little bit of both? How did it work out?
I was just going to say, I think it started off very heavily travel based, and then, there was editing in that, sporadic editing. And then as it went on, it transitioned more into editing. By the end, it was 100% editing, 100% sitting at the computer every day, late nights, so yeah, definitely. Yeah, the beginning, is you're really going out there to try and explore what the truth is. You're trying to gather information. You're trying to get interviews. You're trying to pass out what's going on in the world. And then when you come back in the editing phase, that's really when the sort of storytelling elements emerge, as you begin to see patterns emerging in the footage of interviews and seeing what questions are raising a lot of resistance when we're filming these certain things in Hong Kong or in Japan, and what's causing the most resistance and why is there resistance to us filming this stuff. That's when the story emerged that there's an industry there that's trying to protect any scrutiny on it. And so that's when the story emerged of more about the fishing industry and what's going on. Once we did have that thesis in mind, we did We did go on interviews with that in mind
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. So it started off very, very, a bit chaotic, a bit all over the place, trying to find out what's going on. And then, halfway through, it's like, okay, well, this is something that's kept coming up, so let's run with it. Let's just bring up this question with people.
Yeah, because at the beginning, obviously, we knew about the impacts of fishing a little bit and how fish populations were going down, but nowhere near as much as we found out during making the film. And actually, at the beginning, we were imagining that this would be mostly a climate change documentary. We thought that maybe climate would be the biggest threat to the ocean, along with plastic, like a close tie between all three of them: climate, plastic, and fishing. As the journey progressed, we learned that actually those issues were sometimes related to fishing, and fishing was by far the leading threat. And those other things were more like exacerbators of the problem, So that's where really the story emerged, through this exploration of what was going on in the real world.
I think sorry, this wasn't part of the question, but I think the climate change angle on it is really sort of interesting, because the way we covered it is kind of like leave these ocean systems in place, and that's what we can do for climate change. And I don't think that's part of the mainstream narrative when it comes to climate change. Is like, the ocean is the biggest carbon sink. These ocean systems and marine plants, the animals moving up and down the water column, all these things that, they impact our climate. And I thought that was super interesting.
And obviously you mentioned there, this has been years in the works, right? How was it kind of working on it for years and years and years and years, and that feeling when it kind of finally came out? And also, are there any kind of funny anecdotes from friends, old friends from school, people that have seen it, they're like, oh my God, you're in this documentary?
I actually heard from my GP who sent me a text message like separately and said, oh, I saw the film, brilliant job and stuff like that.
We definitely delayed gratification on this and made sure it was as watertight as possible, because we're pulling this elastic band back for years and years and years and uncovering all this stuff. And so when the film finally released, we had a lot of sort of energy built up when it released. It was, along with Netflix's audience and the work we put in, I think people recognized that and appreciated the time that went into it and telling this story so succinctly. And I'm just really appreciating people's feedback on that. But yeah, it was a surprise, because as I said, we weren't expecting the overwhelming response, and the fact that everyone, people from your neighbors on the street to people on the other side of the world reaching out to you, it's just been completely mind-boggling, and I haven't really processed it yet. So I don't really know what to say on that.
It must have been cool though, all the influencers and celebrities sharing it, just because the impact that they can have potentially because of their audience.
Yeah, and I think like the celebrities and influencers, what's been really cool to see is a lot of them are, people that might not necessarily share this kind of thing. They aren't usually interested in the environment, in sort of like, plastic pollution, any of that stuff. So to see them sharing this was super amazing, because it's like,
yeah, something that they want to talk about to their followers. So it was really, really encouraging.
Yeah.
And what's the biggest thing you both learned from making the documentary?
The biggest thing I've learned, the thing that blew my mind the most, was just how amazing fish are. I read this book, What a Fish Knows, by Jonathan Balcombe, and he was interviewed at the end of the film about fish sentience. And it just, my mind was absolutely blown by just how incredible fish are and how overlooked they are.
Yeah, they're incredible things that we're just beginning to learn about fish, and not only their sentience, their intelligence, the remarkable things about fish, but also their role in the ecosystem and their role in the carbon cycle and the mixing of the seas, as we explain in our ocean in the film, and how that plays into the climate and everything else. For me, one of the biggest discoveries was learning about the sea floor damage from bottom trawling, and how that compares to deforestation on land, which is a huge issue. But compared to the area equivalent under the sea, losing all of those, beautiful marine plants, those kelp forests, those seagrass meadows, how they're being completely bulldozed to the rate of 3.9 billion acres a year, absolutely astounded me. So I think learning about that was hugely, it was an eye opener for me.
I mean, these are numbers we can't get our head around, like billion. I mean, how can we even quantify that? Like the ocean is so huge. It's like, 70% of the planet, and it's just numbers you can't even fathom.
It's like who is it? Is it Stalin? It was like, one death is a tragedy and a million is just a statistic. It's really hard for human psychology to internalize and digest millions and billions of deaths. But just a broad kind of question: do you think change is happening quickly enough now?
I think the oceans are clearly at a turning point right now. So that's why I think this film is really timely because, you know, we're really at a point where we have to change. Something has to change, or else, you know, it's just, you know, this is for the next generation. This is for our futures and everything. And we're at a really crucial point. And I do think there is a lot of hope, because once the ocean is left to recover, it does bounce back. You know, there's marine protected areas that when they are left alone, even for a short amount of time, they do bounce back magnificently. So I think there's a lot of hope, and I really hope this film is instrumental in bringing that sort of awareness and change that's needed.
And how big was the kind of Seaspiracy team, or was it just you guys filming this and then editing this?
Yeah, so one of the big questions we've had is, you know, how big was the production size of the team? Like, how many people were working on it? And we have, you know, obviously people that came in and help us with animations and music and scoring and things like that. But the central team was really small independent team of just, you know, 2 or 3 people, Lucy and I and Kip. And so, you know, when we're going around the world and we're traveling, we're filming this stuff, we're really being able to sneak through the gaps and get those sort of undercover expose moments around the world, sneaking into these fish expos and get in and out of airports and countries. You know, because we are such a small team, we had, you know, small cameras, and a lot of it was just filmed very on the fly. So, you know, I think that actually worked to our benefit making this film.
Yeah, we managed to fit all the camera gear into like sort of 2 backpacks, so we just look like 2 travelers, and you know, the fact that we do just look like we're a couple sort of traveling, we're able to, like, you know, slip underneath and sort of like get footage that would have been a lot harder for a big production team. So yeah, I think it did work to our benefit, and we're able to get a lot of stuff that we wouldn't have been able to get if we were a bigger team.
And a bit of trivia for people, apparently some of the exotic sea shots were actually filmed in Grey, Kent in the UK, correct?
That's so funny. Yeah, so thanks to the power of color grading, there were some B-roll shots of the ocean in the film, which look a lot bluer than they actually were. So, you know, where the first the ocean around the UK is often cursed with a brownish green color, and you know, I managed to get some shots of it with drone and slow motion of waves crashing, and just change the color to make it look a lot bluer to fit with some of the B-roll. But it's only in a few spots in the film.
And what was kind of broad question, but what was your favorite moment in the documentary?
I think my favorite moment, I hope I'm not stealing yours, but was when we went with Sea Shepherd off the coast of Liberia. That was amazing. You know, there was one point where we were sitting right at the front of the boat, and there was a pod of dolphins just, like, you know, just surfing on the water right there, and we got it all on camera, and it was just incredible to see these animals in the wild. Like, when I was young, you know, kind of the only dolphins we saw were like in Ali's story was at marine parks. So it was just so incredible to see, you know, just wildlife and just be out there in the ocean.
Mm-hmm. I think my favorite moment in filming this, obviously we're seeing a lot of incredible events happening around the world. You know, we're going to these countries and witnessing things, and not all of them positive, but all of them, you know, fascinating and curious. But really, like, a lot of the excitement and the interest and the discovery comes through the interviews with our experts. And so whether that be Professor Callum Roberts or Sylvia Earle or all the other ones, and George Monbiot, he's just such a great speaker. We learned so much from him. He's such a great voice for this. And so a lot of the, you know, the best moments that are most enjoyable as filmmakers, because you can just sit there and ask all your questions, is a lot of our interviews. So we absolutely loved the interviews, and I think, yeah, meeting Sylvia Earle and Paul Watson and Callum Roberts and George Monbiot, like all those guys, it was such a pleasure to speak with so many people that were in the film.
And there's so many danger moments in the film. I remember the guy with the knife doing that, telling you to go away, or the guy with was it the chair kicking out of the store? Like, how was that?
So it's quite funny that the one with the guy in Hong Kong, people keep saying they love that quote, "Are you going to hit me with a chair?" It's so funny because we were filming this guy handling all these this huge shark fin import that they just received, a big shipment, and we're filming through this shop, and then he comes and closes the door, but the doors were glass doors, so we just kept filming and filming, and then he tried to threaten us with a chair. So it was, you know, it was something that we needed to do as due diligence for filmmakers. You know, there are risks when you're filming in these areas. There are big industry trying to cover up, but there's also a little bit of humor in those moments too.
And what was the most dangerous place or moment in the documentary?
Trying to tell the story of these people in Thailand who have been able to escape from the fishing industry after many years, some even a decade at sea, was definitely risky, because you're dealing with human rights abuses and crime, and sometimes some corrupt authorities may be involved in instigating these issues and continuing with them. So when we were there, we had to be really careful how we did things. But we have to remember, we were there voluntarily. We weren't there to try and risk our lives for the entertainment factor. We just wanted to go there to try and tell their stories, to try and get their human element. These people are oppressed and have been oppressed for many years, and they have something more to fear for their lives than us who fly in and fly out,
Yeah.
And so
we wanted to use our cameras and, our, to go over there
our
and
platform,
and let them tell the story through the
absolutely.
film.
So it's self-aggrandizing, a little bit like icky for us to big up the risk on ourselves, when really we're there to bring the spotlight onto their risks, and their dangers and what they've gone through.
It's a powerful answer. I never thought of it like that, and you guys clearly really, really humble, but it makes sense. I wanted to ask about the state of our ocean. It's just, we're looking for a soundbite for social media. What are the state of our oceans like at the moment, if I had to kind of put you on the spot and you had to give a soundbite?
Our oceans are in a state of crisis, and in many areas of the world, all the wildlife has already been wiped out. The seagrass, the kelp forest, these beautiful ecosystems have been completely ransacked and bulldozed to the ground from bottom trawling and purse seining and all this fishing that goes on, demolished through all the fishing gear. And so we really need to turn things around before it's too late. And I know that sounds alarming, but we need to take action now. This is a really urgent issue. We could be seeing fishless oceans in many areas of the world in the next several decades if we don't turn the clock. So this film is really going to start this conversation and put the actual solution to the fore, and that's what gives me hope. So although the oceans are in a state of chaos and crisis, we have the solutions available to us. It's really simple, and it's actually put forward in the film of what we can do to turn things around.
So what next for Team Seaspiracy?
So after the release of Seaspiracy and the overwhelming response, we've been growing our team on Seaspiracy to really just make sure that we put out even more investigative and educational content on the ocean. And so our social media platforms are growing really rapidly, and a lot of people are loving the content on there and over on our website. And so really that's what we're going to be focusing a lot of our time on, continuing the mission beyond the constraints of the film to make sure we reach even more people in different areas of the world, different demographics, getting educational programs at schools and campaigns and petitions and
approaching government.
Absolutely, working with government and industry to help them make the transition and become more aware of these issues that so many, even within government and industry, are just unaware of. So that's a big part of it. And we'll be launching a project called Disrupt News, which focuses broadly, even more than just the ocean, on environmental and social issues and really covering issues at the intersection of that. So that's at disruptnews.org. But because we've been so busy, it's just been a tidal wave and just making sure that we keep up with everything. But that's what we're working on, as well as future documentaries in the near future.
I'm super looking forward to those. And how can people support your efforts in the Seaspiracy movement and the traction that it's getting? How can they help augment what's already happening?
If people want to support the ongoing campaign with Seaspiracy and really get this message out there, they can follow us on Seaspiracy on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and everywhere, and visit our website and sign up for the upcoming newsletter that will be blasting out a campaign that everyone can be part of and really be part of this global movement that's now talking about the leading threat to our ocean and the best thing that we can do, this most simple solution that we can do in our personal lives to actually turn things around. So, really appreciate everyone's support and actually sharing this film and making sure it gets to #1 in their country. The response has been phenomenal, and we're just super, super grateful.